The evacuation ships of 6 alien civilizations fled in perfect formation, a coordinated retreat that had been rehearsed for generations. Commander Vralix of the Luminari watched through the observation deck as the massive vessels disappeared into the void, carrying the last remnants of once mighty empires. Her translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent distress signals that no one bothered to acknowledge anymore. "The humans aren't coming," her first officer Ethan stated flatly. "They've ignored the Coalition's directive." Vralix's compound eyes shifted to the small blue planet growing smaller in the distance. "Impossible. No species would willingly remain. The void cascade will consume their world in less than one orbital cycle." "They're not just staying," Ethan whispered, mandibles clicking nervously. "They're building something. Our sensors detected massive energy signatures, construction arrays, weapon platforms." The Coalition had discovered the void cascade 50 years earlier, a quantum anomaly that devoured energy, matter, and even space-time itself. It moved between star systems like a predator, leaving nothing behind. Every predictive model showed Earth directly in its path. When Coalition representatives had arrived on Earth with evacuation protocols, the human delegates had listened politely, asked detailed questions, and then, to everyone's shock, declined assistance. "We appreciate the warning," Admiral Keisha Reeves had told them, her dark eyes steady and unblinking. "But Earth isn't going anywhere. Coalition scientists dismissed it as primitive denial." Luminari philosophers suggested it was a noble but futile stand. The Axioni believed humans simply couldn't comprehend the threat's magnitude. But now, as Vralix studied the incoming data, she wondered if they had all misunderstood humanity's intentions. On Earth, Admiral Reeves stood in the Global Defense Command Center beneath the Himalayan mountains. Holographic displays showed thousands of orbital platforms nearing completion around Earth. The room hummed with focused energy as engineers, scientists, and military personnel from every nation worked in seamless coordination. "Final power core. Installations complete on the Pacific Array," reported Director Naveen. His fingers danced across the controls, dark circles under his eyes, evidence of sleepless weeks. "Quantum resonance chambers are stable," added Dr. Ilawan Travain, her voice hoarse from endless briefings. "The theory holds in all simulations." Keisha nodded, studying the approaching anomaly on the main screen. The void cascade resembled a storm of absolute darkness, consuming light itself as it traveled. It had already devoured 3 uninhabited systems on its approach to Sul. "The Coalition thinks we're committing species suicide," she said quietly. Dr. Rigel Frost looked up from his calculations, his weathered face grave yet determined. "Their science is advanced, but they gave up too easily. They never considered that the cascade might be controllable rather than just avoidable." "Project Prometheus is humanity's greatest gamble," Keisha replied. "But I'd rather fight with no guarantee of victory than run with a guarantee of eternal homelessness." Outside, the night sky was ablaze with the lights of construction. Humanity had poured every resource into the project. Old enemies became allies. Competing corporations merged their R&D, religious leaders and scientists worked side by side. The void cascade had accomplished what nothing else could: complete human unity. On the far side of the planet, physicist Orion Nava stared at the equations scrolling across his screen. His theory, that the cascade wasn't destroying matter but transforming it into something else, something that could potentially be harnessed, had been dismissed by the Coalition as wishful thinking. But humans specialized in wishful thinking made real. "If we're wrong," he murmured to himself, "no one will be left to say, 'I told you so.'" He pressed the activation key, initiating the global countdown. 70 million kilometers away, Commander Vralix watched in silent awe as the tiny blue planet began to glow. The void cascade approached Earth like darkness swallowing stars. From the Coalition's observation fleet now stationed at a safe distance in the Kuiper Belt, it appeared as though humanity was offering itself as a sacrificial meal to a cosmic predator. "They've activated their system," reported Ethon, antennae quivering. "Energy readings are unprecedented." Commander Vralix watched the holographic display with multiple eyes, each focused on different aspects of the unfolding event. "What exactly are they attempting?" "Our analysts believe they're trying to create a containment field," responded Science Officer Marithal, her crystalline body refracting light nervously. "But the cascade consumes energy. Adding more only accelerates the destruction. On Earth, the atmosphere crackled with electromagnetic potential. The orbital platforms, a network of interlocking quantum resonators, had synchronized into what humanity now called the Prometheus grid. Energy flowed between the platforms like neural connections, forming a web around the planet. In the command center, Admiral Reeves maintained her composure despite the tremors shaking the mountain facility. "Prometheus grid at 90% synchronization," announced Director Naveen. "Cascade boundary reaching Mars orbit." Dr. Ilawan Trevain monitored the quantum calculations. "We're detecting the expected distortions in local space-time, exactly as Dr. Nava predicted." Across the world, humanity watched through various media as their fate approached. Families held each other close. Some prayed, others raised glasses in defiant toasts. But unlike previous global catastrophes, there was remarkably little panic. Humanity had made its choice collectively to stand and fight rather than become cosmic refugees. "Initiate Phase 2, ordered Admiral Reeves. Deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, the massive power core, built with technology reverse-engineered from studying the cascade itself, surged to life. Similar installations beneath the Pacific, Indian, Ocean, and Antarctic ice shelves followed suit. Earth began to pulse with energy like a heartbeat. The cascade, now visibly distorting the space around Mars, seemed to hesitate. Orion Nava, monitoring from the Lunar Observatory with his team, leaned forward. "It's responding to the resonance pattern, just as we hoped." His colleague, quantum engineer Lyra Kamal, frowned at her readings. "But the power drain is exceeding projections. The grid can't sustain this level of output for more than 30 minutes. "It doesn't need to," Orion replied, his voice tight with concentration. "We just need to establish the connection. Once the pathway forms, the cascade will do the rest of the work for us." In space, the Coalition observers watched in stunned silence as the void cascade, this unstoppable force that had consumed entire star systems, appeared to slow its advance. The anomaly's edge, usually sharp and defined, began to ripple and pulse in rhythm with Earth's energy emissions. "They're attempting communication," whispered Marithal in disbelief. Vralix's skin flashed with patterns of confusion. "That's not possible. The cascade isn't sentient. It's a quantum phenomenon." "Perhaps," mused Ethon, "our understanding was incomplete." On Earth, the moment of truth approached. The grid had successfully established resonance with the cascade, but now power systems worldwide began to overload. Blackouts rolled across continents as every available joule of energy was diverted to the Prometheus grid. In orbit, the first few platforms began to fail, their structures unable to contain the incredible forces flowing through them. They exploded in brilliant flashes, creating gaps in the planetary defense network. "Grid integrity at 70% and falling," reported Naveen, his voice strained. "We're losing cohesion." Admiral Reeves made the call. "Initiate final protocol. Activate the Nexus." Dr. Rigel Frost, hands steady despite the stakes, entered the command sequence that would channel all of Earth's remaining power reserves into one concentrated pulse, a quantum key designed to unlock the cascade's true nature. As the countdown reached 0, humanity collectively held its breath. The pulse fired. The grid flared with impossible brightness, and the void cascade changed. The transformation began at the edges of the cascade, where darkness gave way to iridescent light that rippled inward like water droplets disturbing a still pond. The Coalition observation fleet's instruments went haywire, unable to process the readings from the phenomenon unfolding before them. "What have they done?" Commander Vralix whispered, her bioluminescence dimming in awe. On the command ship's main view screen, Earth was now enveloped in a cocoon of shifting energy that resembled neither the void cascade nor anything the Coalition had encountered in millennia of space exploration. Science Officer Marathal's crystalline form vibrated with excitement. "They've created a dimensional inversion. The energy isn't being consumed, it's being redirected." Meanwhile, in Earth's command center, systems failed and rebooted in cascading sequences. Emergency lighting bathed the control room in red as technicians fought to maintain connections with the orbital platforms. "Nexus pulse successful," Dr. Elowen Trevane announced, her voice hoarse but triumphant. "We've established quantum entanglement with the cascade's core structure." "At what cost?" asked Admiral Reeves, surveying the damage reports flooding in. Half the orbital grid had been destroyed, and power systems worldwide were in critical failure. "Can we maintain control?" Dr. Rigel Frost shook his head, silver hair catching the emergency lights. "Control was never the objective, Admiral. Understanding was." On the lunar observatory, Orion Nava and Lyra Kamal watched with scientific exhilaration as their theories materialized before them. The Void Cascade, once an incomprehensible destroyer, was revealing its true nature. "It's a dimensional gateway," Orion breathed, eyes wide. "Not destruction, transformation. Matter and energy aren't being consumed. They're being transferred elsewhere." Lyra's fingers flew across her console. "And now we've established a two-way connection. We're not just observing the process. We're participating in it." The Prometheus grid, though damaged, had fulfilled its purpose. The remains of the orbital platforms now served as anchors for something new. A stable wormhole where the cascade had been, its event horizon glimmering with possibilities. Around the world, as power slowly returned to cities and communications were restored, humanity emerged to witness a changed sky. Where stars had once been blotted out by approaching doom, a new celestial feature shimmered, a controlled pathway through dimensions. In Coalition ships, dumbfounded analysts tried to make sense of what they were seeing. The void cascade, the unstoppable force that had driven 6 advanced civilizations from their home systems, had been transformed by a species considered primitive by galactic standards. They turned a weapon into a doorway, Ethan observed, mandibles, clicking in amazement. Commander Vralix made a decision. "Prepare a diplomatic shuttle. The humans have earned direct communication." Back on Earth, as systems stabilized, Admiral Reeves met with the Global Leadership Council. Faces showed exhaustion, but also fierce pride. "Project Prometheus was successful beyond our projections," she reported. "The cascade has been stabilized and repurposed. We've created humanity's first controllable wormhole." World President Zhen nodded gravely. "And what lies beyond it?" Dr. Rigel Frost stepped forward. "Our preliminary probes show a region of space, untouched by our universe's physical constraints. Energy there exists in forms we've barely begun to comprehend. The cascade wasn't a natural phenomenon," added Orion Nava, joining via holographic projection from the moon. "Our data suggests it was a leftover tool from something far older than any current civilization, perhaps created by the same precursor, race that left ruins throughout our galaxy. And the Coalition races simply ran from it," mused Defense Minister Carabo. "While we found a way to use it." Admiral Reeves frowned slightly. "Let's not become arrogant. We nearly destroyed ourselves in the process, and we still don't fully understand what we've created." As if to emphasize her point, Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Director Naveen rushed to his station. "We're detecting an energy signature coming through the wormhole," he announced, tension evident in his voice. "Something's coming. Through." On screens worldwide, humanity watched as the shimmering portal that had replaced the void cascade began to pulse rhythmically. At its center, a shape began to form, not emerging from the wormhole, but assembling itself from the wormhole's own energy. Dr. Alawan Travain stared at her readings in disbelief. "It's communicating." The entity coalesced from the wormhole's energy, not solid, not liquid, but something between states of matter. It hovered above Earth's atmosphere, a shifting geometric form that seemed to fold in on itself in ways that defied Euclidean geometry. Instruments worldwide struggled to maintain focus on it, as if the very act of observation caused it to change. "Is it a ship? A being?" President Jen asked, voice hushed in the command center. Dr. Rigel Frost studied the readings with intense concentration. "Perhaps both, or neither. We're dealing with something that exists partially in dimensions we can't perceive." The entity pulsed with light in complex patterns. Earth's communication arrays, though damaged from the Prometheus activation, began receiving signals on frequencies never used before. "It's attempting contact," Layra Kamal announced from Lunar Command. She had been redirecting satellite arrays to focus on the visitor. "The pattern is mathematical. Prime numbers, then Fibonacci sequences." Admiral Reeves nodded. "Universal language basics. Respond in kind and escalate to more complex exchanges." As Earth scientists worked to establish communication, coalition ships cautiously approached from the outer system. Commander Vralix had informed her superiors of the development, resulting in the hasty dispatch of their most senior diplomatic team. "The humans have made contact with a trans-dimensional entity," reported Ethon, monitoring Earth's communications. "A feat no coalition world has achieved in recorded history." Vralix's skin rippled with complex emotions. "We fled from what they embraced. Perhaps our caution has limited us more than protected us." On Earth, the dialogue with the entity progressed rapidly. What began as mathematical exchanges evolved into symbolic communication, then conceptual transfers that required new forms of interface technology. Quantum computers worldwide linked together to process the information flow. In a hastily assembled diplomatic chamber in Geneva, representatives from all Earth nations gathered to witness the translation of the entity's first coherent message. "We are Nexus," came the words, displayed on screens and translated simultaneously into all human languages. "You have reopened the gateway. This was unexpected." President Jen stepped forward, her voice steady despite the historic gravity of the moment. "We are humanity of Earth. We transformed what we called the Void Cascade to preserve our world." There was a pause before the response came. The veil was not meant to destroy. It was a test. Many encounter it. Most flee. Few understand. Orion, Nava, now brought to Geneva from the lunar base, exchanged glances with Admiral Reeves. "A test," he repeated, "like a filter." "The cascade has appeared to multiple civilizations," said Admiral Reeves, addressing the entity. "Was its purpose to identify species with particular qualities?" The geometric form shifted, expanding and contracting. "Yes, those who perceive beyond destruction, those who transform rather than flee, those ready for the next evolution." In the observation gallery, coalition representatives who had just arrived watched in stunned silence. Among them was High Philosopher Kazari of the Axioni, oldest of the coalition species. "For millennia, we interpreted the Void Cascade as universe's entropy-given form," she whispered to Commander Vralix. We built our theologies around escaping it, never questioning if it might have purpose. The entity, Nexus, continued its communication with humanity. Your species reconfigured the veil using your own understanding. This demonstrates readiness. The network awaits. What network? Asked President Jen. The community of evolved consciousnesses, transcended species who have passed the threshold, entities who exist across dimensional boundaries. Dr. Elowen Trevaine's eyes widened as she processed the implications. You're saying there's an entire civilization of beings like you? A network of species who passed this test? Yes. Spanning realities beyond your current comprehension. The gateway is the first step to joining. Admiral Reeves stepped forward. And if we choose not to join? The entity pulsed in what might have been amusement. Choice is fundamental. The gateway now belongs to humanity. Use it or seal it. Learn or remain isolated. All paths are valid, but only some lead to evolution. As translations of this exchange spread globally, humanity faced its greatest philosophical question: remain as they were, or step into an unknown evolutionary path with unknowable consequences. Meanwhile, the coalition representatives approached, the human diplomatic team. High Philosopher Kazari bowed deeply before President Jen and Admiral Reeves. We came believing we might need to save survivors, she said, her translator converting her harmonic speech to human language. Instead, we find ourselves humbled by your achievement. Admiral Reeves nodded respectfully. Perhaps we all have something to learn from each other. You have technologies and knowledge accumulated over millennia that could benefit Earth. And you, Commander Vralix added, have demonstrated courage and innovation that our civilizations had forgotten. The coalition fled the test that humanity passed. Above them, the entity Nexus continued its geometric dance, a living doorway between dimensions, proof that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. And humanity stood at the threshold of transformation, faced with a choice that would define their species' future. The decision to engage with Nexus wasn't made by governments alone. For the first time in human history, a truly global referendum was held. Every adult on Earth participated in the vote that would determine humanity's cosmic future. After 3 days of planet-wide deliberation, the results came in, 78% in favor of proceeding with controlled exploration of what lay beyond the gateway. A measured approach, President Jen announced from the United Nations Assembly Hall. We will neither rush headlong into the unknown nor shy away from it. Humanity will advance carefully, but we will advance. The entity Nexus had remained in Earth orbit during the deliberations, occasionally communicating with the scientific team, led by Orion Nava and Lyra Kamal. Its patience seemed infinite, a trait of beings who experienced time differently than humans. We have questions before proceeding, Admiral Reeves told the entity during a formal communication session. Other species who encountered the veil fled. Were they wrong to do so? Nexus's geometric form shifted through complex patterns before, responding, not wrong. Self-preservation is valid, but possibilities remain unexplored for them. And these possibilities, this evolution you mention, what does it entail for us physically? Biologically? Asked Dr. Elowen Trevane. Transformation occurs at all levels: physical, mental, perceptual. The network exists partially outside conventional dimensionality. To join requires adaptation. Dr. Rigel Frost leaned forward. Are you suggesting our bodies would change? Your form follows your consciousness. As one expands, so must the other. The implications sent ripples of both excitement and concern through the scientific community. Was this transcendence or extinction? Evolution or replacement? The line between them suddenly seemed thin. Meanwhile, the coalition diplomatic contingent, had grown as ships from all 6 fled civilizations arrived to witness the unprecedented events. They observed with a mixture of envy, admiration, and caution. Commander Viralix found herself in conversation with Orion Nava at the Geneva facility. "My people, the Luminari, have legends of ancient beings who existed between spaces," she admitted. "We dismissed them as prehistoric superstition as our science advanced. Now I wonder if our ancestors encountered entities like Nexus." Orion nodded thoughtfully. "Human mythology is filled with beings that transcend normal existence. Gods, spirits, dimensional travelers. Perhaps all sentient species intuitively sense that conventional reality isn't all there is. Yet your species was the only one brave enough, or perhaps reckless enough, to confront the veil directly," Viralix observed. "Necessity breeds innovation," Orion replied. "We had nowhere else to go." The first expedition through the gateway was scheduled for exactly 1 month after Nexus's arrival. A specially designed vessel, the Threshold, had been constructed incorporating both human ingenuity and technical advice from Nexus itself. Its hull contained adaptive materials that could withstand dimensional stress, and its crew of 12 represented Earth's finest minds, including Lyra Kamal as science director. On the day of launch, humanity collectively held its breath. The Threshold approached the shimmering gateway that had once been the dreaded Void Cascade. "Expedition team ready," Lyra reported from the ship. "Gateway approach vector locked." Admiral Reeves, monitoring from command, gave the final authorization. "Proceed, Threshold. Take humanity's first steps into the network." The ship entered the gateway and vanished from conventional space. For 72 agonizing hours, no communication came back. Global anxiety rose with each passing hour. Had the expedition been lost? Had Nexus deceived them? Then, just as emergency. Protocols were being discussed. The gateway pulsed, and the Threshold re-emerged. But it was changed. The ship's hull now shimmered with the same iridescent quality as the gateway itself. And when communication was established, the crew's voices contained harmonics that normal human vocal cords couldn't produce. "We have seen it," Lyra transmitted, her voice overlaid with something other. "The network. 1 billion civilizations existing, across dimensional boundaries. Knowledge beyond comprehension. And they welcome us." The video transmission showed Lyra and the crew. They appeared human, yet subtly altered, their eyes reflecting light differently, their movements slightly too fluid. "Are you still yourselves?" President Jen asked, voicing the question foremost in everyone's mind. Lyra smiled. "We are ourselves, but more. Our consciousness has been expanded. We can perceive realities previously invisible to us, right?" "You still human?" Admiral Reeves pressed. "We are the next evolution of humanity," Lyra replied. "And we've brought back the knowledge to help others make the transition safely, if they choose." As the Threshold crew shared their experiences, humanity faced its most profound choice yet. The network offered advancement beyond imagination, but required becoming something other than purely human. Evolution beckoned, but at what cost to human identity? And watching closely were the coalition species, now confronted with their own choice: continue as they were, or follow humanity's lead into cosmic transcendence. Nexus observed it all, a patient gateway between what was and what could be. 1 year after the gateway's stabilization, Earth had transformed. Cities gleamed with new architectural forms that incorporated dimensional principles learned from the network. Transportation systems utilized controlled micro-gateways, allowing instant travel between distant points. Energy concerns had become obsolete as humanity tapped into the dimensional flow that Nexus had revealed. But the most profound changes were philosophical. Humanity stood divided, not in conflict but in choice. Approximately 30% of Earth's population had undergone what was now called the transcendence process, guided by the original Threshold crew. These elevated humans maintained their core identities and memories, but experienced reality differently, perceiving additional dimensions and communicating in ways standard humans couldn't fully comprehend. The remainder of humanity had chosen to remain conventional, at least for now. Many were cautious, waiting to see long-term effects. Others felt fundamentally attached to their traditional human experience. Some held religious or philosophical objections to altering human consciousness so dramatically. Remarkably, this division occurred without the warfare or persecution that had marked previous human evolutionary divergences. The elevated didn't consider themselves superior, merely different, and conventional humans recognized the elevated as an extension of humanity rather than a replacement. Admiral Keisha Reeves, who had chosen to remain conventional, stood in the new Geneva Nexus Center. Through massive diamond composite windows, she watched as transformed humans communed directly with various network entities that now regularly visited Earth. Some appeared as Nexus did, geometric abstractions of light and energy. Others took forms specifically designed to interact with conventional beings. "Quite the year we've had," said President Jen, joining her at the window. She too had remained conventional. "Sometimes I wonder if we made the right choice, opening this door." "I ask myself that daily," Reeves admitted. "But then I remember the alternative was extinction." Orion Nava approached them, his form now slightly luminescent, one of the visible signs of his elevation. "The coalition representatives have arrived for the conference," he announced, his voice carrying harmonics that gave his words subtle additional meanings that conventional humans could sense but not fully interpret. The conference represented another unprecedented development. After witnessing humanity's success, the coalition had requested formal admission into Earth's Gateway program. The species that had once fled the Void Cascade now sought to learn from the humans who had mastered it. In the Grand Assembly Hall, representatives from all coalition civilizations gathered alongside human delegates. Commander Veralix, now appointed as coalition ambassador to Earth, addressed the assembly. "A standard year ago, my people considered humans primitive, brave, but foolhardy," she began, her translator converting her bioluminescent patterns to speech. "We fled what you faced. We preserved our civilizations as they were, while you risked everything for transformation." Her skin pulsed with what humans now recognized as the luminary expression of profound respect. "Today, we come not as teachers, but as students. The network that humanity has accessed represents the next stage of cosmic evolution, one our ancestors perhaps glimpsed, but we had forgotten. We ask to share in this journey, to learn from humanity's example." Dr. Rigel Frost, still conventional but serving as liaison between standard humans and the elevated, responded, "Earth welcomes the coalition. The gateway belongs to no single species. The network has made clear that cosmic advancement comes through cooperation, not isolation." High philosopher Kazari of the Axioni approached the podium next, her ancient species having revised millennia of theological doctrine in light of the gateway's true nature. "What we feared as entropy, you revealed as potential," she said. "Our oldest texts spoke of the great beyond, a state of existence we believed would come after the universe's end. Now we understand it exists alongside us, accessible through understanding rather than avoidance." As diplomatic proceedings continued, Dr. Elawan Travain and Lyra Kamal monitored a new development from the scientific wing. The gateway had been exhibiting pattern changes, subtle fluctuations that suggested something unprecedented was emerging. "The network is responding to the coalition human accord," Lyra observed, her elevated senses perceiving aspects of the gateway invisible to others. This integration of approaches, human courage with coalition wisdom, is creating new possibilities. Eloin, who had remained conventional specifically to maintain a scientific perspective uninflected by elevation, checked her instruments. The gateway is expanding its dimensional parameters, but stabilization is holding. On the main floor, the diplomatic proceedings were interrupted as Nexus itself manifested, larger and more complex than ever before. Its geometric form expanded to fill the center of the hall, pulsing with new patterns. Convergence accelerates. Understanding, it communicated, now speaking directly rather than through translation systems. Separate evolutionary paths reconnect. This fulfills ancient design. Admiral Reeves stepped forward. What design? Who created the veil, the test that brought us here? Those who came before. Those who seeded galaxies. Those who wished to ensure life would eventually transcend its origins. A murmur passed through the assembly. Every coalition species had myths about precursor races, as did humans. Could they all be referencing the same truth? The gateways exist throughout all galaxies, Nexus continued. Some dormant, some active, each awaiting species ready to transcend. Your combined approach, human innovation with coalition knowledge, creates new possibilities. The network expands. The gateway, visible through the chamber's windows, suddenly flared with new energy, its dimensional barriers shifting to reveal glimpses of what lay beyond. Billions of civilizations in different stages of evolution, countless realities interconnected across a cosmic web. Your next journey begins, Nexus announced. Not apart, but together. The assembled representatives of Earth and the Coalition faced this new revelation. Old enemies, now allies, former refugees, now pioneers, they stood at the threshold of cosmic citizenship. Admiral Reeves exchanged glances with Commander Vralix. Conventional human meeting conventional alien, both choosing their own paths, yet united in purpose. It seems, Reeves said quietly, that facing our fears rather than fleeing them opened doors we never imagined existed. Vralix's skin pulsed in agreement. And perhaps that is the greatest test of all, learning when to stand one's ground. Above them, the gateway shimmered, no longer a threat, but a promise. Humanity had not merely survived. They had transformed destruction into opportunity, fear into exploration, and in doing so, changed the course of galactic evolution itself. Others had escaped the threat. Humans had faced it head-on, and the universe would never be the same.